Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back here to today's episode of Advanced Bass Fishing, and much appreciated you guys checking today's video out and spending some time with me. We're going to be talking about wind direction and how wind direction affects bass in today's video, and sort of give you guys some tips and advice on how to approach your day based upon the direction of the wind, because the wind is constantly changing. It's one of the variables that determines the mood and the personality of the fish, so we're going to dig into that in today's video. Also, guys, just a couple quick housekeeping tips, guys. If you like if you like advanced bass fishing here and want to support the channel, one of the best things you can do is hit that subscribe button. It's free and easy to do so. And you guys using all the links I put in the description, like my Fish the Moment Lake Map breakdown list, the Tackle Warehouse link I put in the description, solar bat sunglasses. Everybody that has sort of went that extra mile to use those links is really supporting advanced bass fishing here, so big thank you from me and my family there. Okay, a lot of you guys that watch my videos on different channels, you hear me talking a lot about the conditions surrounding a day's fishing, whether it be like the water clarity, the sky condition, the rain, the clouds, wind speed, temperature, everything, because that determines a lot about how you want to go about your day and how you want to approach the day. Now, one element of that, or one factor of that, is the direction that the wind is blowing from. And based upon the direction that the wind is blowing from, and in correlation with the wind speed a little bit, it can definitely have an impact on the fish as far as their, things they want to bite, things they don't bite, where they're positioned at. So I sort of want to go through the spectrum of the predominant wind directions and sort of tell you guys my experience on how this has been. So let's talk about the best wind, as far as the wind, in my opinion, that makes the fish most aggressive and makes the fish bite the best. Now, again, this is, you got to take all this with a grain of salt, but this is a general, pretty accurate foundation. There's other factors that play into it, but this is a pretty good analysis, in my opinion, on how it affects it. Now, the best wind direction normally is a south wind or a southwest wind. Usually associated with the south or southwest wind, you've got some type of a steady or lowering barometric pressure. It can be a stable weather pattern, or it can be a front approaching, depending upon the situation. But when you have a southerly or southwesterly airflow, it usually means you got some stability a little bit right there. And also it usually means that you've got normal or above normal temperatures. So there's nothing really radical to affect the bass in terms of a temperature drop. Now, everything surrounding that, this is sort of the mystery in fishing as far as why certain wind directions affects the fish. And I don't think you can look at it just from the bass's perspective. I think you have to look at it from the entire food chain, because based upon the wind speed and the wind direction, it moves and shifts the algae and plankton and zooplankton around in the water, which in turn, allows the minnows and shad and other type of bait fish to follow that, which in turn allows the other predator fish like bass to make those movements too. So all that sort of works into correlation, but you're going to find in general on a south or southwest wind, fishing is usually going to be pretty good. The fish are going to be a little bit more active, and this is a really good time to use some type of a moving or reaction bait. Anytime you have these optimum fishing conditions, your crankbaits, your topwaters, your spinner baits, your chatterbaits, those more aggressive type lures are going to be, pretty good with that. Now, next wind speed, let's go to like a straight west wind. Now, there's always variations in this, but these are the predominant wind directions. A westerly wind, you're not going to notice a lot of difference between the west wind, southwest wind, and a south wind. It's pretty close in there, but it seems like to me when you have a westerly wind, you don't really have the cloud cover that comes with that, and sometimes you don't have the above normal temperature. Again, a west wind is usually pretty decent. It's not real common. You don't get just a straight west wind a whole lot. It's usually like a south or southwest wind, but there's not much difference in that. The next wind direction that's definitely going to have a radical change from a southwest wind or west wind is when you have a northwest or a north wind. Now, a northwest and a north wind, in my opinion, is the toughest fishing wind that you're going to have, because a lot of times with a north or northwest wind, you got an association with a frontal passage with that. And based upon the type of front that is, the severity of that front and the intensity of that front, that northwest or that northerly wind can be, a lot of different speeds. It can be, just a light breeze, or it can be a 30-mile, deal out of the north. And in association with that, based again upon the type of front, you can have a heavy overcast, or you can have a bluebird day on a north or northwest wind. But most of the time, when you do have a north or northwest wind, you've got some type of a rising barometric pressure. You've got a lot more light intensity for the most part. Now, like I said, you can get those cloudy days, but for the most part, you have a clearing, and you have the light intensity that comes after a frontal passage that creates a north or northwest wind. It's the brightest light intensity that you're going to have. The atmosphere is crisp and clean. There's not much particulate in the atmosphere. It's extremely bright after a north or northwest wind, and that toughens up the fishing. It makes the fish more finicky. It makes them more aware. They don't have the cloud cover usually as some type of a comfort mechanism. It totally wrecks the zooplankton and the algae movement and the bait fish. A lot of times it'll put them a little bit deeper because the surface temperatures are cooling off. But everything combined makes for a north and northwest wind to be some pretty tough fishing. Most of the time what you're going to experience is that if you do have some wind that stays with the front after it, the fishing will still be okay. But if you lose your wind, or you have a light wind and you have a significant temperature drop, that's when it makes it really tough. Now, the biggest impacts that you're going to have on a post-front north or northwest wind is going to be in the springtime of the year and the fall time of the year. It's not going to affect the bass much in the wintertime or the summertime. In fact, in the summertime, it hardly affects them at all. You don't even hardly notice very much because your temperature drops are not that much. But you've got your big radical temperature drops in the spring and the fall, and that's when it's going to have a big impact. Now, an east wind is sort of an anomaly because there's a big saying in fishing. It's like when the wind blows out of the east, the fish bite the least. I haven't found that to be true because an east wind is extremely rare unless you live on the East Coast. If you live on the East Coast, like particularly in Florida and all those coastal waters, the tidal rivers, you get a lot of east winds coming in there. And normally when you do have an east wind, it's a pretty significant wind, and it makes it difficult to fish. We don't get very many east winds back in the mid part of the country where I live here in Missouri. It's extremely rare to get just a straight east wind, and it usually doesn't last very long. But I have not noticed any type of significant reduction in the number of bites I get. The thing that stands out to me more than anything else about an east wind, it's usually a strong wind. And it usually, makes it difficult to fish certain areas because those areas that are getting hit by an east wind, which are the westerly type banks, they very seldom get wind on them. So sometimes that can create an issue there. So that's just a quick analysis of the wind direction, what I have found. Like I said, there's other factors involved with that, with the intensity of the wind and with the water temperature and the air temperature in correlation with the wind. All that plays in to a role in terms of your actual technique. But in terms of the mood and the personality and how it affects the fish, I think it's a pretty good overview that I just went over there on it. So anyway, hope it helps out, guys. We'll talk later.